Welcome back to Heart of the Matter podcast, where we discuss the issues that matter most to your heart. My name is Sherry J, and I am your host. In this episode, you'll learn more about me and why I chose to create this podcast. We'll also discuss the meaning of social epidemics and provide statistics regarding blended families. Well, let's dive in. And we're back. Okay, I'm sorry I had to cut the music off like that, but that's just something about me. I like jazz. I actually love jazz. I love, saxophones. I love live music, and jazz is like, it's just so relaxing. So I thought I'd throw that in for you guys, and maybe each episode I'll add something different. And if you like, we'll continue this. So back to the matter at hand, which is the topic on, well, first about myself, just to be real and transparent. So the reason why I started this podcast, let's start with that, is because I'm a product of a blended family. So just a little background about me. I'm a mother of 4 children, a wife. I am a teacher by nature, meaning I have no degree in teaching. I am not a school teacher or anything to that effect. However, I have the gift of teaching, spiritual gifts. And so I can teach anybody anything. And it's kind of like in my nature. I don't even know that I'm doing it when I'm doing it. But yeah, I'm a lover of history. Most importantly, I am a believer. Okay, I'm a faithful believer of Jesus Christ, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So I am a faithful believer, and I'm a devout Christian. So that's a little bit about me. And some of my background is I actually grew up in a blended family. So about 7 years old, prior to my parents, I guess, breaking up, they were married, they divorced or were in the process. And at 7 is when I actually moved to live with my father. My father and his actually at that time was his new wife, which was my stepmom, which I always called her mom, or, mother, mom, really mom, because that's all, we kind of knew her as to be his mom. And, that's going to be a good topic for us to discuss too. What should you call your step parents? Are you calling them mom? Are you calling them by their first name? That's a good topic. So we'll probably discuss that as well. But, I grew up from like 7 on under, in a blended family with, it's 2-parent household, but, a stepmom and biological father. My mother had some mental health issues or things going on at that time. And so that's really what happened and why I created this podcast, because I just wanted to bring awareness to everyone regarding blended families, that it can be a very good thing, but it also can be a not so good thing. The perfect example of a family would be the biological mother and father sticking together. And I know in society right now that's not always the case, and that's not how it's going to actually be in society, because just we're in an imperfect world, right? No one's perfect. And because of that, we make mistakes. We have a lot of issues, getting it right. No one's perfect. And I get that. So I understand that, there's sometimes a lot of divorce or remarriage, and it creates blended families. And I understand that. Now, do I think a blended family is better than being a single parent? I absolutely do. I believe a great alternative to single parenthood is to actually have a blended family. And so if there is an effective blended family, effective dad, stepdad, or stepmother who can actually do the job and raise someone who is not their child as their own, I believe that's great, and we should do that. However, there should be a criteria of who becomes that step parent and or stepmom or dad, and will they actually be fit to be that step parent? That's another question that we must ask when we delve into the blended family conversation here. So, enough about that. So I'm gonna also talk about the social. We're going to discuss the meaning of social epidemics. So the meaning of social epidemics. Well, first, let me say this. When you think of the word epidemic, what comes to your mind? Because I know what comes to mine, but I want to know what comes to yours. But I think what comes to my mind comes to yours. So, but when I think of an epidemic, I think of a horrible illnesses, plagues, and diseases. And that's actually true because an epidemic is defined as a widespread occurrence of infectious diseases in a community at a particular time. So it's actually right to think of an epidemic as a disease, and even like one of those sci-fi movies. But what a social epidemic is, it's actually the spread of ideas, messages, behaviors, and products the same way that viruses spread. So here, products spread the same way that viruses spread, or behaviors spreading the same way that viruses spread. So just like we've seen COVID-19, even though that was a little bit more rapid, these behaviors are spreading. Just think about blended families. If we go back 50 years, how many blended families can you really recall if you went back 50, 60 years? I mean, an epidemic is something that gradually gets bigger over time. So it doesn't start at this large level, kind of sneaks in. And over time, you look up and it has become an epidemic or a big issue, but it started so small at first. And so that's what an epidemic is. And this is a social epidemic because it's dealing with people. It's dealing with society. So this is the reason why I came up and said we're going to discuss social epidemics, because fatherlessness is a social epidemic. Blended families is a social epidemic. And then the decline of morality in society is definitely a social epidemic. I mean, these behaviors are so widespread. They're everywhere. And I was thinking of doing an episode of blended families, right? And we just focus straight on that. And then maybe an episode regarding the fatherless epidemic, and then social morality decline. But, I came to the conclusion that really the blended families hinge on fatherlessness. So the epidemic of fatherlessness, to me, it affects both blended families as well as the social decline of morality. Because if you think about it, if there was two parents in the home, if the father didn't leave, which I'm not saying all the time it's the father, but majority of the time the fathers are not in the home. And because the fathers aren't in the home, the mothers, who normally remarry and divorce and remarry more than the men do, they're left with the children, and then they're remarrying and creating a blended family. And because of the father is now absent, now you also have a decline in the social morality, because the father is the patriarch of the family, of the household, and he lays the foundation. So because he's laying the foundation, without him there, that foundation is lacking. Have you ever seen a young woman who has a lot of issues, or maybe societal issues, or just maybe she's a little promiscuous, and she says, well, I didn't have my father in my life, or I didn't have my dad for this early on, right? We see this over and over in society. And we may say that it doesn't matter, but it does. And not even just a young lady, but a young male who maybe goes to a gang to find that male nurture, or, male dominance that he needs or so. So it happens. And because there is an epidemic of fatherlessness, now it leads to a blended family, or it leads to a social decline in morality, because there is no structures, because the fathers aren't speaking up. I can't say they aren't speaking up. I have seen on social media where the fathers do try to speak up and say what is right, what is moral. And when I say decline of social morality, let me just get this straight. I am meaning that morality, which we know means right and wrong, to know right and wrong, to have morals, values, So those things are gone, right? This society has none. You will see all kinds of things on social media, in real life, because there is no dignity, there's no integrity any longer, there's no morals. And that is the reason why we see so many things going on. But what I was saying is, I can't say all fathers are not sticking up or all men are not saying anything, because I see men saying things, right, on social media about maybe a young girl wearing something that's inappropriate or that should be worn at a certain age, or that her mom would be wearing, and that man gets attacked so much that I'm sure, he may fight back, but he may not want to come back to speak up and say anything. So as a whole, as society, we have to stop beating down our men and beating down someone who has a different opinion or is trying to help. It may not look like help to you because, again, morality is gone. There is really no morality. There's immorality, a lot of that, but there's not too much of morality. Okay, so moving on to statistics of blended families. So I did a simple Google search to really just get an idea of how big blended families really are. And I stumbled upon a search that says marriage, family, and step family statistics. It was by Smart Families. That was the name of the website. And I saw a book there that says Premarital Preparation, Preparing to Blend. And it's by Ron L. Deal. It's a book, and it says it's a couple's guide to becoming a smart step family. I thought this book would be, a good, interesting book to just skim over. The title and things like that is what I did. And so when I was looking into like details, it actually gave some good general statistics and references of how, many blended families there are, how they're growing. I'm just going to give you some of that information. It's actually says that blended families are about a half as likely to get premarital preparation compared to the first marriage couple. So meaning, when you go to get married, you're more than likely to get premarital counseling. However, when you remarry and you are having new children or involving your current children, you are less likely to have any type of pre-blended counseling. And I thought that's really good, because we really need things like that, because you don't know how to operate a family with someone else's children, and you may know how to treat yours, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to work for those children's. So it also went to say that basically now the non-traditional is now the new traditional. So it says, per the book, today so-called non-traditional families, including families with single parents, single adult households, and step families, now outnumber traditional ones. Wow. So at this point, it really is an epidemic, because it's surpassing what the norm is. It also says there's about 52% of married or cohabiting couples with at least one living parent and at least one adult child that has a step-kin relationship. 52%. And then it goes to say 40% of married couples with children in the U.S. are step couples. At least one partner had a child from a previous relationship before marriage, and that includes full and part-time residential step families and those with children under and over the age of 18. 40%. So that is almost half the population of people that are actually having children before they are married. And I'm not judging anybody or saying anything to that effect. What I'm saying is that it just shows that waiting till you get married to have children would be more beneficial, and it may decrease your chances of having a blended family. I don't know for sure, but it seems like to me that, the blended families are being created sometimes even before another remarriage. So we have, the singles who are actually having kids before they even meet their husband or wives. And so as soon as they get in even their first marriage, you have a blended family right away. So this is really, it's not really devastating or anything. It's just really like mind blowing to know how many blended families there really are, that it's actually higher than the nuclear biological family. So, however, do I think it could work? Absolutely. I know it could work. Like I said, I'm a product of a blended family. I'm not going to ever say everything was perfect. It wasn't. However, I think with certain tools given to a parent or step parents to learn how to work with their children, work with their stepchildren, and get along as a whole family actually would work. I think that if you go into any type of blended family thinking that, hey, you know what, we are